How the Light Gets In is the Institute of Art and Ideas' unique festival, combining days full of talks and debates in philosophy, politics, arts and science, with evenings full of music and dance. Get your tickets for the world's largest music and philosophy festival at howthelightgetsin.org.
Do we think that sex robots might reinforce dangerous ideas about sex and sexuality? Alan, maybe I can ask you that.
Sure. Well, I do, I have to say. I mean, this is another serious concern, which I think I'm sure I share probably with the other panelists. But you know, essentially the objectification of women through, as Kate said, that hypersexualized robots. In a sense, is reinforcing. It's taking what I regard as one of the great evils of humanity, which is sexism and, in particular, misogyny. I want to highlight misogyny as a singular evil, if you like, in the world. And what we're doing is reinforcing it, and also profoundly depressingly, we're transferring an evil from the real world, if you like, into the artificial world.
I would probably disagree with you on many points, simply having worked in sex work myself, that many of the assumed evils are evils of perception by people who are not involved in it in any way. I certainly have the problem of being objectified as almost robotic by people who are in favor of eliminating sex work and sex workers altogether. So I already experience people telling me that my existence is evil and not perceiving me as a rounded human being, when the experience of so many people within sex work is that, as you were saying before with the guys with the real dolls, I mean, this is only ever going to be niche and it's not entirely for everybody. They do treat them with a bit more respect than we do as viewers looking at that situation. And this is certainly true of the sex workers' experience. While people who are uninvolved with it project basically their aesthetic taste onto absolutely everybody within it. These are humans with volition within that. That said, and I just want to kind of throw the hand grenade into, if we did have humanoid sex robots, what would be the problem of, say, having child sex dolls, child sex robots?
Okay, so I was coming in that I agree in some ways, because I'm a pro-sex feminist, so I do see a problem with the sexism in terms of reductive stereotypes that are not, we see this in lots of other things. It's not just sex robots, it's music videos, it's whatever. I realise though it is also a fantasy land, and there are things like, there's a lot of talk about will sexual violence against a robot translate into real world violence. Well, first of all, there's been stories in the press about people being violent towards a sex robot. It's completely looked into it and it's unfounded. But we've seen the same arguments about computer games. We've seen the same arguments about online porn. There's been no correlation between the access, the sheer huge access to, I think we were talking yesterday, 81 million users a day, or Finn was yesterday, 81 million users a day on Pornhub. There has not been a corresponding rise in sexual violence. Now, there are other influences coming from the porn, but not that sexual violence correlation. Same with video games. We don't have the evidence of that. This is no evidence base here. Now, when it comes to the child sex robots, I think this is a more problematic area. In the UK last year, there were something like 123 arrests of people importing childlike sex dolls. It's not illegal to own them in this country. It's illegal to import them. But it is illegal for possession of indecent images of children, and also to create computer-generated versions of those. That's also illegal. And it's not really a stretch to see that being extended at some point to cover the dolls and the childlike sex robots. And the reason I don't think that we should be banning. I don't really think we should be banning anything, because that's a slippery slope and prohibition doesn't work. I don't think we should be worried about the adult versions of the dolls. It's the child ones, because it reflects the a social setup where it is illegal in real life there.
Obviously, there's a social taboo. I mean, when we talk about things being illegal, kind of where the line is a little bit arbitrary. Yeah. We're talking about law. And ethics really has a relationship with law, but it's not one-to-one and on-to. So when we talk about something like that, would there then be a problem with other things that are perhaps unethical and non-consenting, such as a sex doll dog?
Yeah, I mean, This is the thing. Yeah, it needs to be weighed up on the damage of what's going to happen in real life,
And
which we
something
don't have the evidence for at all. But I mean, I think the University of Montreal has done a study, and University of Quebec has done a study on the use of creating virtual reality situations where sex offenders have seen, the images of children, for example, in situations that would arise, and they've used it to see whether or not they've responded to treatment. And that could be something that these are used for. I've spoken to both people who said, yes, you could use the child sex dolls as a proxy, as a way of handling fantasy for paedophiles, and many paedophiles never offend. There's a difference between child molester and a paedophile. Child molester is someone who has committed a crime of that nature against children, but may not fundamentally be attracted to children. But they've committed a crime, whereas some paedophiles will never act on that. It may be that those sex robots are something for them. Then again, I've talked to other psychologists who work with sex offenders and work with paedophiles who've said, please never offer this opportunity. It is just an escalation. We just don't have evidence either way.
Get your tickets for the world's largest music and philosophy festival at howthelightgetsin.org.